you want to.
All right, this class is being recorded, so we may share it with those who weren't able to attend. By attending this class, you agree to have your likeness and voice recorded. If you would prefer to change your name and turn off your camera to be anonymous, you may do that at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Today, I will be covering how to use, or what is, Google Workspace and how that relates to being an office or a steward, or even just usage within the SCA. Three main topics for the day. What is Google Workspace? 2, how do you use that? And 3, how we'll be using that for, we'll be using the administrative and moderation side of that, but how it'll be being used within the Kingdom of Kaid. Excuse me for a second. All right. So the first piece of information, I'm going to put a link in here. I have some Google Notes on my drive that I'd like to share with you. And this is the outline for the topics I'll be covering for the day. And that's in my Google Drive, which is a cloud storage service if you haven't used it. I don't really, is there a way we can do show of hands? Not really. But I'm seeing a bunch of people showing up on the showing for this. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Let's get that set up. Yes, that one. That looks right. Okay. So you can see the document now in both places. What is Google Workspace? So Google Workspace is a collection of productivity apps that Google provides free of charge through their 2 different ways. There's the consumer side, which is what most people have used already, and that includes Gmail. So if you have a Gmail account, you already have a Google Workspace account, you just don't know it. If you use Google Chrome and you've set up a user account on that, you already have a Google Workspace account. The official Google Workspace is whenever an institution applies for and gets an actual administrative account for Google Workspace, which the Kingdom of Kaid has one. And get into that in a second. And so that currently the web rights of Kaid manage that, services the geopolitical groups using it currently, Petro War, Barony of Calafia and its subgroups, and I believe where they're moving a couple of the other baronies north of Calafia onto Google Workspace as well. What does it include? So here in the notes, right? Gmail is the obvious one, right? Email and messaging, contacts, all of that. Calendar, if you ever use Google Calendars, you're using a Workspace tool. Meets and Hangout, which is Google's version of Zoom. And there are 2 different flavors. Meet is the more Zoom-oriented one. Hangout is more of the individual video call and messaging side, but they're basically the same application, just either business-oriented or consumer-oriented. Google Drive, which is their cloud storage service. All of the documents that you create using Google Workspace get stored in your drive onto your account. Google Docs, sort of like Microsoft Word, Sheets, spreadsheets, forms. You can create input forms for surveys, registration, event registration forms, that kind of thing. Slides, PowerPoint. Then there's dozens more. I think there's like 50 some supported apps directly through here. Plus there's a whole app store that you can actually access more applications and have them connected through. So I've used it for flow charting, for network diagramming, stuff like that. All sorts of applications that are free, productivity applications, graphics editing. So someone mentioned Photoshop earlier. There's some very low level graphics editing software available through the Workspace application drawer. How do you get to that? The first piece is your user account. So normally you would, if you're using Chrome, up in the top right, you've got your user account information that you're logged into, who you are. So I'm currently using my WebRite account right here. I have a couple of others that I can access through. And you can manage your Google account. If you're not using Chrome, you can just go to myaccount.google.com to manage your user account. If you have a Gmail account of any kind, whether it's one you set up or one that came with an Android device, you have a Google account. So myaccount.google.com, you can manage your account there. So let's take a quick look at, let's see, all the stuff about your account, what applications you have, what devices you have connected to it, et cetera, will all come through here. If this was a workspace account managed by Kaid, all of this would be within Kaid's managed domain. If you just have your own Gmail account, this is all on you. Gmail is managing the software, but your account is you. So that's the user account side of things. Oh, sorry, skip this one. If you want to know more about this after this, and you'd like to learn more about it and how to use it, Google has a learning center. Welcome the Google Space User Learning Center. And that will go through most everything we're going to go through here, much more in depth, all the help and everything else to explain everything. So good site to go and check out if you want to dig into this more, or if you ever need referrals. I hit it every now and then myself. Probably should back up a second. Who am I and why am I teaching this class? Sorry. Curteis FitzOsbern. I am the web writer for the Barony of Calafia. I have been managing, hey Crystal, been managing the Google Workspace back from when it was Google Suites for the Kingdom of Kaid in some fashion for the last 5 years. Originally, it started as a project for converting over emails specifically for the Patura War website. The Dreamhost service that we were using was just getting swamped with emails from the registration system. So we were looking for another way to manage emails. So we actually wound up starting a workspace account specifically for Gmail, and then realized the number of other benefits that it provided. So where does that fall into usage for as an officer or an event steward, and how is this useful? The first thing is, this is a cloud service, which means you can get at this from any mobile device, any browser, any web connected device. So your home PC, your phone, your tablet, whatever, you can log into your services, you can check your Gmail on it. All of the pieces, let me rethink that. If you have multiple accounts, you wear multiple hats. So for instance, I'm the web writer, but I'm also a guild steward, but I'm also a yada yada. Instead of having to check multiple email accounts for each one or try and have them all feed into my personal email, there are now multiple email accounts for each of those offices. I have them all on my phone. My phone alerts me when any messages come in to those accounts. So now I don't have to go looking and chasing after my emails for all of my office responsibilities. My mobile device will alert me to any of the emails messages that are coming in to let me know about that. So it actually makes maintaining your office a lot easier. The next piece is successorship. Any of the documents, any of the content that you create on your account, when you are done with your account, we hand that account over to your successor. So all your email correspondence history, all the documents you've created, anything else you've stored in your drive, poof, we hand the keys over, and now that's their office, which means now these offices can come with a digital history of account information for the office. And it makes it a lot easier to pass that institutional information along to the next officer. You don't have to worry about, I'm still waiting for, Joe Bob to bring me over 3, office boxes full of paperwork from the last 16 seneschals. So passing those keys over, we just reset the keys and poof, the next officer has all the content. So if you do pick up an office like this, you definitely want to make sure you clear out your email box of anything you don't want your next successor to have before you hand the keys over. So that's the general idea for why this is being used for officers and stewards within the kingdom. Let's see, so we covered workspace, covered the account. Yes, I know I'm sharing, go away. Shoot. I need to get at my tabs. All right, so next big thing is Google Drive. And this is the document storage repository for your content. So this is a shared literally a hard drive on the web, and you have control over what is in there and who you can share this with. And this is can be very useful. So for instance, here I have a folder as WebWrite. I have a number of documents that I need to control for the Petro, my responsibilities for Petro Web Steward, but then because we provide basically the IT infrastructure for the war, that we're providing for all of these stewards for the war. So I have a folder with all those documents in it, and I've shared that. And I've shared that with a distribution list for all of the Petro stewards. So these documents that I have in here, they now have in their drives under their steward accounts. And anything I put in there, anything I change in there, automatically is reflected in their drives, and they see it. So instead of having to like shuttle back and forth documents and spreadsheets via email and everything else, I just modify it in the drive. It shows up at their side.
I have a quick question about that.
Yes.
Do you get notified when somebody makes changes to the document? Like, say you make it, you go away, you come back, somebody's changed it. Do you get any kind of a notification saying so-and-so made updates?
If they're conscientious about it, yes. That gets into ownership and permissions on the document.
Okay.
Curtis, can I interject for just a second? I'm
yes.
not sure if this is what you're asking, Tina, but I do know that because we use Google Documents a lot for things, the last person that made the updates, it'll show in your list of documents, whoever it was and what time and date it was that they were last in there and made changes. When you look at your list of documents.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, so what was just brought up there was when you're looking at any document here in the drive, including the folders themselves, you'll have the details about it, which tells you who you're sharing it with, the information about the sharing on it, but also the activity and history of changes to that. So you can look at, here's all the changes that have been made to that drive folder in this case, but then I can also drill in and say, okay, here's our registration flow chart, and here's all the changes that were made to that when that document was edited. So it doesn't actually have the individual changes, that's under the revisions within the document. Sorry, but on a external level meta information, this is one of the last times the document was edited by someone. So since you brought that side of the equation up, when you share a document from your drive external to people, we currently have it so that most documents can only be shared. No, obviously I just shared this with you, so that's a lie. But primarily we try and make it so that documents are only shared within the workspace. So other user accounts within the SCA Caid domain. Within that, you can control whether people have the ability to just see the document, whether they can make comments about the document, or whether they can. So for instance, let me go ahead and look into this one here. Yes, I authorized it already. Thank you. Can I do the thing now? Ugh. Well, that was not a good show. Let's try a different document. Yes, go away. Shoot. Making a liar of me. Here we go. All right, so pull this one up real quick. Petro War website standard operating procedure. Make a liar of me. Where's the sharing? There's supposed to be a button that says share right here. Anyway, there's the last edits. And it was edited by Baron Gyrand. So you can see the revisions tracking on it, etc. Why did preparation? Let's try that again. You gonna behave this time? Did they move things around on me and I just didn't even notice? There we go. Share. So you can control who has access to the event. Currently, only people with the only people added can open this link, right? So right now this is closed off. Only people who I've shared this document with directly can actually view it. I can change that to making it so that anybody who has the link can view it. I can make it publicly available so you can actually search and find it. You can change what people have access to do. So right now, like most everybody is just a viewer. My deputy can actually edit the content. You can make people so that they can comment and just put little sticky notes basically on it and let you know, hey, you need to change these things about it. Right. So this way you can either, as the owner, right, I can control whether other people actually edit my document or not. And then within that revisions history, you can see when people do change the editors made changes to the documents. Bonus, you can actually have multiple people working on the document at the same time. And you can actually have, let's see, where did that go? There we go. You can actually have an inline conversation about the document while you're working on it and editing it with people. So if you didn't have a voice channel going on in the background, like Discord or Zoom or something else, you could actually have a text chat within the document about the document while you're editing it. So for instance, here in this one, I can see that we currently have a couple of people here who are looking at the document. And in theory, if you had editing permissions, you could come in here and start updating, making corrections to this, and we could have a chat conversation about those what we're doing with it at the same time. So you can do collaborative document editing with other people using this tool. So that covers the sharing portion. Let's see, nope, that was on Drive. So are there any questions at this time about either the available tools or the usage for this as an officer? You in the blue hat. You're muted. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, so we have an issue sometimes where we have an officer who has stepped down, has used their email to get things subscribed to or regularly get emails from things. Is there a way that the person in charge of the workspace can unsubscribe that person or block those emails from coming into the successors?
Good question, and that opens a couple of can of worms. So let's go ahead and get into that. So within Workspace, because Kaid Web Rights manage the entire domain and service, we own all user accounts, right? So as long as everything is being done through a user account, we have control over that. As a result, one of the problems that we've had historically within the SCA is that something happens, it's in email threads, it's going to people's individual emails, a problem occurs and we need to get documentation on these things. And all of that is in someone's personal email folder now. That's a problem to get at. The way we set these accounts up is that they are your office, your stewardship, your role, not you individually, right? So when I step down, I'm going to hand my WebRite account to my successor and all my correspondence and everything goes with it. Because of that, one, we're no longer supporting forwarding emails from an office account to personal emails for two reasons. One, if something happens and we need to lock down that correspondence, we can, because we can take ownership of that. We can pull back ownership of that account and lock it down so that we can make sure that we have historical accuracy before anything happens to that account. Two, those aren't being forwarded to your personal accounts, which means if we ever, for some reason, have legal issues where we need to have access to all those documents, we don't have to try and get access to your personal email accounts, and you don't have your personal email account being messed with as a result. So this is actually double-sided protection to make things protect the SCA and protect you. So within that, as WebRite, as an admin for this system, when I give you the keys for your account, I do not have access to anything within that account. I can manage the outside of that account. I can manage what applications you have access to. I can manage what permissions you have within groups and such, but I can't manage the content within it. So I can't see your emails. I can't see any personal forwards you've set up. I can't affect any of those things. So we can manage, like for instance, as an officer, so I have two deputies, sort of. Email that comes to WebRite at Califia actually comes into a groups and then gets forwarded to my officer account and my two deputies. I can manage whether they're in that group. I can manage which groups that their accounts are assigned to, etc. but I can't control the email in their account. In order to do that, we would have to take ownership of the account back from the user and then actually log into the account ourselves. So on the one side, that means that you have some privacy within your office and role to do what you need to do. On the flip side of that, we can take that back if we need to in order to manage forwards and stuff from outside the account and the like. So we don't like taking ownership of that because it's very heavy-handed. There have been a couple of cases where we've had to do it just because someone's like, I've got forwards going on, I don't know what's happening, and can you please take care of it? And so okay, I'm gonna need to take ownership of the account. I'll get in there, I'll check the personal forwards that have been set up within the account and remove those and then give the ownership back to the user. By and large, we try to avoid forwarding, automatic forwarding from within the accounts. So for instance, no longer support forwarding from an administrative side, email that is addressed to an office to a personal email address. Covered that earlier. It is technically possible for a user to create their own forwarding rules within their own mailbox. And so we actually had a couple of cases where somebody did that because they wanted their emails coming directly to their personal email box, and then they handed the keys off and they were still getting emails from the office. And it's like, well, what did you do? Did you remove that before you left? No. And so that was one of the cases where we had to take ownership back because the new user didn't know how to find find and remove the forwards. So we don't encourage that. It is technically possible. It's sort of one of those, we can't turn that off. And there's reasons why you might want to do that. But if you do, make sure you turn it off before you turn the keys over. So that's, I think I've covered that whole circle there. Let's see. Sorry, I've got, no, that's not, I have lost a screen, I think, somewhere.
There is a question.
Yes, thank you.
That says, do you allow delegation of accounts? If you'd like to come off of mute, Ida, to more elaborate on your question, you may do that.
Where is?
So you allow people to forward mail to a personal account, I understood, but you don't think it's very useful. You're trying to discourage people from using it. Do you allow people to set up delegation of an official address to their own account so that they so they can keep accessing that mailbox even after they are no longer an officer potentially?
No, the keys are one-to-one, right? So when I step down, the password login information for my account will get handed to my successor. I will no longer be able to access this account or the email account for it. Right, so the Gmail, all the drive, all the content that belongs to this account, basically that whole office gets handed to someone else with the keys. So as a person who has stepped down, you will no longer have access to any of the contents of that. Is there a use case there that would be an issue?
No, I'm just wondering if you can turn it off centrally. The delegation, because there is a risk that people set up delegation and keep access to an account that way.
So how to put this one? We have no control over what people do with the keys once they get them. When we hand the office over, we do a password reset to the new officer, so they have to actually change the password. So the previous officer will no longer have the password for that account. If for some reason the new officer wanted to share their password with someone, we have no control over that. And so you could still have two people logging into the same account. The way it's set up in theory, you can't have two people logging into the same account at the same time from multiple devices. So in theory, you wouldn't be able to share the account at the same time, but you could, for instance, have an account and go, I just want to give the key to my deputy and let them access my account when I'm not using it.
Yeah. We
don't encourage that, but we can't stop it. But yeah, there is no way to, outside of that, outside of our control sharing, there is no way within the system to allow anyone other than the person with the keys to access the office. Does that
All right, thank you.
address the question? Okay.
Yeah.
That's a new one. I hadn't really thought that one through before. So I'm like, what's the use case on that, or is that a problem? Okay. Let's see, what's our time looking like? Wake up. 3:30. Okay, we're moving faster than I expected. So at this time, the question is, okay, it's great workspace. That's nice. How does that apply to us in the SCA, and what's going on with this? We have been evaluating trying to get a virtual workspace productivity system set up for all of the officers and stewards within the kingdom for a while. Patrol War was the first demo to see if we, how would that even work out, and how would we manage it. We've been running it for the Barony of Calafia for 4 years now, I think, 3 years at least, to see, okay, does that work for a large group as opposed to just an event? Because Patros, it's just a Barony of that, it's small. So we've been using that for a while. We evaluated against Office 365, and we looked at a number of factors about, what is our population within the SCA look like? How are they approaching technology? What are the thresholds on that? Chat, why is that not showing up, and how do I make it show up? I'm seeing chat ping, but I can't actually see the chat panel, so I can't read it. Am I missing it?
Click on the chat icon down in the bottom of your screen, because you have to do that to make it pop up over onto the side.
That's where I'm trying to find it. All I have is the multi-view. I'm like, where'd the other panel go? There's chat. Thank you. Okay, that'll work better. Allow delegations. Okay, yeah. Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm distraction. Okay. Okay. So we evaluated Office 365. We looked at a couple of other possible productivity suites for what would their suitability be for the way the SCA works as a system. And one of the big caveats that we had was we have people who come in, they do an office for a year, sometimes 2, and then they move on. And so we wanted, one, that the ability to keep the accounts for the roles as opposed to the individuals. But also we wanted it to have the lowest threshold of adoption, so that a random SCA person could come on, pick up the keys for the account, be able to access everything, do what they needed to do without having to learn technology suite, and then roll out and hand that off to the next person. And given the fact that if you have an Android device, which 50% of the user market has an Android smartphone or a tablet of some kind, the adoption for Android and Google services is pretty much already 50% of the SCA probably has Google services of some kind they're already using and doesn't know it. The other half of it is that most of the applications that are available through Google Workspace, for instance, the docs, the sheets. Hello?
Oh, sorry, I'm not on mute. I said they're free.
They're free. That's one. So on that regards, because of the SCA's nonprofit licensing, or nonprofit tax, whatever, we actually qualified for an educational license for Google Workspace. We also had one that we were demoing for a while for Office 365 as a nonprofit educational. So they were free regardless of the fact. But yeah, normally it's like $5 to $8 per user per month, which if you're looking at the Kingdom of Qaid having a license for roughly 1,000 officers, that adds up fast, right? So yay that we got the nonprofit license. Distracted. What was I saying? Oh, right, adoption of the services. So most of the services that are available through Google Workspace, they're a little rudimentary. Google Docs, it's not Office. It's not Microsoft Word. The trick is that for 90% of what anyone does on the internet with those productivity apps, the Google services do that. So, you need to do a spreadsheet and just be able to put some stuff in there, maybe make some calculations, maybe make a chart. It does that. You know, you want to be able to write up a 4-page essay on something and be able to insert some pictures and make it available on the web. Google Docs does that. You want to write your master's thesis with a bib and an index and automatic linking and yada yada. There's add-ons for that. Most of the applications actually have add-ons that you can add to your user accounts applications to add extra productivity. So that means that instead of opening up Microsoft Word on Office 365 and being inundated with, so you're writing a master's thesis, you open up Docs and it's like, so you wanted to write some stuff down? So the threshold for accessibility, the threshold for usage was a lot lower with Google, and it's like they knew what they were doing with their market. So that's why we've decided to go with Google Workspace as opposed to Office 365 or any other web productivity service. So at present, we are rolling that out across the kingdom very methodically and slowly. I believe Angels has gone on board with it. I know one or two of the smaller groups, their WebRights are in the Kingdom WebRight group that's managing this, and they're rolling that down for their barony. And as we go through and figure out all the officers and everything else, get all the accounts set up in advance, those are getting rolled out to the territories. So in theory, we hope to have this available to almost all officers, event stewards, possibly guild stewards. Kingdom Calafia, we got a ton of guild stewards and they all have accounts. Deputies, etc., so that everyone has a user account for their office and role within the kingdom. So those are the most of the big points. Are there any other questions at this time?
Yes, Crystal has a really good
Oh, hey.
question.
Yeah.
If you'd like to unmute, if you want to elaborate.
So I have another question about collaborative documents or like setting up web pages. For example, if you're setting up an ANS display page for an event and you might have like 12 sub-artist pages, is there a way for the primary person who's setting it up to set the styles and set the who has access to specific pages so that each artisan can only change their page rather than having access to change any of the pages, maybe accidentally?
Okay, so I think that question relates to document level permissions, if I understand that correct. So for instance, if you had a website where you were linking multiple Google documents, and you had a separate document for each participant, then you could set the permissions for each document to only allow editing for that document's sub-owner, right? Everyone else could still view the document, but then you, the owner, you as the event or coordinator, or the specific participant would have permission to edit the content of the page. And when you give them permission to edit, unfortunately, it's all or nothing.
Okay, so if they're editing their own page, they could accidentally feasibly edit somebody else's page.
No.
No.
So if we think about this as you have a website,
Mhm.
right? And on this website, you have 4 Google documents that you've inserted onto the website, right? And so you have a document for participant A, B, C, and D, right? You can give editing permissions to document A, to user A, permissions for document B to user B, and then they can edit their individual documents where everyone else can just view them. So that was under the permissions that we covered in the drive earlier here. Let's see, get back to that folder. Right, so in here you could have, for instance, create a folder for that event, right? Create the documents for each of the users that they're having the things, and then on the permissions for each one of those documents, let's see, you can come in, do share, and say, okay, everybody has permission to view this. Participant A has permission to edit this document. This is now document B. Participant B can edit this document. This document
So you
C
can
permissions.
do
Right.
it per one. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you
can set it up that way. Does that work?
Yeah. Thank you.
All good. Okay. Cool. let's see. Okay. Yeah, so each document. So that's if you wanted to bring, so given the WordPress class that was just before this, right? If you wanted to just control the permissions through the Google document itself, that's how you could do that. If you were actually having the document be a text space in WordPress, then you could control those permissions per user through WordPress for that page. But that would be because the content is actually being managed by WordPress internally, as opposed to a link to a separate Google document. So if you actually wanted to be able to have the documents be available, stored, etc., outside of that event, then the Google documents would probably be your better choice. And then you can set the per user permissions on that way. All right. Let's see. Anything else?
So, hey, Curtis.
Yeah, Rowan.
One thing I don't know if it was discussed or not. Like, it's kind of been popping in and out. I apologize if it has been. But one nice thing about the Google Workspace is the theory of content delivery network, which is what we're doing also with the Kingdom, or a lot of different sites are. So when we ran an event a little while ago for Unbelted, we had Google Forms that would do certain things that drove a Google Sheet that then I can pick up and drive onto a website as content. All of it was managed within Google. And then I can drive off that one sheet, another sheet that other people could use for scoring and other things like that. So that interconnectivity, the interaction between all the different Google products or apps and things like WordPress and some add-ons you can do really allow you to do delivery of content to to websites and stuff like that a lot easier. Sorry, I just want to kind of throw that out as kind of that bigger thought pattern as we're using it in the SCA.
Yeah. Just had a thought. There was one of the contexts that came up when we were discussing this early on was the issue of what if you've got multiple accounts, right? I wear 3 different hats. We've had some people have had up to 7 in our barony using this, and they've had multiple accounts. How do you manage that many accounts? So I'm going to cover that real quick here. So this, backing up a step, you can use any browser to access Workspace. You can add your user accounts to your mobile devices. If you have an Android device or an Apple device, you can add it there too. And you can use that to switch between your user accounts. Obviously, Google makes Chrome. Chrome integrates a little bit better with Google Workspace integrates a little bit better with Google Chrome. So that being said, in order to keep my mundane stuff away from my SCA stuff so that I don't cross hats, you can create user accounts within the browser to actually say, I'm logging in as this user, and this user has access to the following individual user accounts. All right, so this is a persona for the browser. So this is my WebRite browser, right? And it has access to several accounts. So I have access to my Petrura WebRite account, I have my WebRite Calafia account, and I have my Nautical Guild account, right? So I can actually switch between these. And when I do that, it will actually change which slices of and which permissions I have for the applications I have open in the browser, right? So I can actually we have a Petrura WebRite account separate. If someone else was actually going to manage Petrura WebRite, please, I can give them those keys account, and then it's like, here, Petrura's your problem. Thank you very much. They have those keys, and I don't have access to this account anymore. But for now, I can delegate and strip out, okay, this is my Calafian WebRite duties, this is my Petrura WebRite duties, and actually have separate drives, emails, etc. between the two. But this allows you to easily flip between these. The reason this is useful, especially on a mobile device, is the question of, oh, I don't want to have to check 5 emails because I've got 5 different offices. If you add each of those accounts to your mobile device, so for instance, I have the WebRite account, I have the Nautical Guild account, and then my personal account on my phone. Any email messages sent to those accounts, my phone notifies me, hey, you've got a Calafia WebRite message, you've got a Nautical Guild message, right? You open that up, you read it, you want to reply to it, it automatically sends it back from the account it came into. So there's no more like, oh, I sent this to Nautical Guild from WebRite Calafia, or I wanted to send it as the WebRite and I sent it as me, Curteis FitzOsbern, right? So you actually it helps to segregate and keep your email threads separate, but also to mail in, mail out. So you don't have to think too hard about which account am I in and what am I doing, and helps keep those hats separate so you don't wind up responding from the wrong hat. So for instance, let's see, did I just do that? Yeah, so if you, as a pro tip, if you set up a persona for your browser, let's see, profile is what they actually call them here. But if you set up a profile, you'll actually have two separate profiles you can log into. So I can actually have a separate browser up right now as Carter Harvey, and then this one here as WebRite Calafia, and all my WebRite stuff is on this one, all my personal stuff's on the other one. Which is also helpful if you're trying to edit something, you want to know what it looks like to everybody else. You can log in as you're not, Office thing to view what it is you're doing, to make sure you set up the permissions right, or to view the content or whatever. But that helps to segregate those, keep them a little bit straighter, and manage multiple accounts at the same time. So once you actually get, there's a little bit of a learning curve to being able to do that, but once you get past that point, Google actually helps you manage all of that stuff. So the concept of, I don't want to have to manage 15 accounts, I don't want to have to do all of this stuff. It's like, well, then find deputies and give it to them. But second, it actually helps you manage all of that so that it's not actually as shuffling as it would seem. Let's see. Anything I can go through, show, or talk about at this time? It's actually going a lot faster than I originally intended, already 3:40.
I have a question. And so since you're on the top end of the changeover, do you have any insight when the other baronies will be changed over? Are they contacting our web ministers? Is there going to be training for new people? Like right now, my WebRite is a sophomore in college, and he's like really busy. So he'll do stuff when I go to him, but we're getting ready for a changeover in Office, and the new person that's going to be coming in might need training on how to do this.
So I think that's actually a Rowan question.
So to answer your question, all the whole kingdom will be moved over at some point. Contact, we're kind of waiting for the kingdom office to change over in June, and Magnus is already working. He should be part of the baronial or the monthly meetings, so you can ask him at one of those meetings, and your WebRite can always go and kind of get on the calendar. But as of now, Curtis mentioned several groups. Gildenholtz moved over. Some of the kingdom smaller areas like the Pelicans have moved over. The Marshalls is moving over. So we're moving pieces at a time, depending on the help we can get as we move forward.
Yeah, we'd like to work with the territories so that, obviously we're not going, surprise, you have Google stuff going on now. But definitely work with the local WebRites, et cetera, to help transition and get the training in, so that way there's inclusion on the process.
I would also say, and I'll kind of throw this out for Magnus, if anyone's ever interested in being part of the Kaid IT/WebRite group, you're more than welcome. Just hit up the Kingdom office and say, hey, I'm interested, whether you know something or not. I mean, part of our job of what we've established is to create a group where we can also teach. Yeah, if you have any thought patterns or care or any knowledge, just let us know.
Gita was asking if there's a WebRite meeting planned for May. Do we not have one on the calendar?
Haven't checked. Are you talking about the monthly meeting or the IT meeting? Which one?
The monthly meeting, because I think the last time it was just me and you that were there.
Yeah. So the answer is we don't know. It's still owned by Ish and Walt. I know Magnus in the last meeting we had as a smaller IT infrastructure group, we talked about it, and he does want to keep those up moving kind of every month. So I would say kind of wait for the transition to finish up. And as he kind of takes control, he'll make sure we're starting up. He wants to make it more of a kind of a collaborative. Let's get all the web right, or get anyone is interested together and talk about problems, talk about solving things, talk about how to do certain things. Not necessarily, hey, this month we're going to talk about this, and that month we're going to talk about that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Sorry for interrupting. I just.
No, it gave us a plug where we can talk about, if you're interested, join us.
All right, thank you.
So,
Curtis, I'm
yes.
being clueless at the moment. How did you get to the workspace?
Terminology. Do you mean your account management, or?
No, you actually had something that was popped up that said Google Workspace.
Okay, so not this document, or do you mean the training? I'm sorry, you mean the training site?
Yeah.
The learning site.
Where do I find that?
There is a link.
Support.google?
Support.google.com, but also there should be a link to it right here, G Suite Google.com Learning Center. Product used to be called G Suite or Google Suite, but now it's Google Workspace. But there's a link to it at the top of the notes.
Thank you. I now understand where the connection is. I missed that particular redirect. Thank you.
Also, Brianna, you can find it if you go to any of the applications under help, you'll see training. They'll take you to the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Blonde again.
It's, there's a lot of these pieces I'm still like, oh, hey, these are actually connected. Who knew? Google's kind of assumes you know things sometimes. One of the fun problems we have when we set new users up, we'll set up the account. We'll go send out an email and say, hey, here's your account credentials. It's got your login name. It's got your password. You log in. It says you need to reset your password. You go, great. You reset your password, and you're immediately faced with a page of you need to be an admin in order to access this area. Where am I, and why do I need to be an admin? I don't know why Google does that, but for some reason they automatically redirect you to the admin site right after you sign in as a user, which is like, no, there's exactly one person for every account, every entire workspace that actually needs to go there. Why would you send all users there? And so I'm constantly getting emails from new users of like, it says I have to log in as an admin or something. Just go to Gmail. Google's stupid.
I know it's a pain in the backside, but perhaps a glossary or what this term used to be or whatever list would be good for those of us who've used pieces of it in the past and are not current. Or at least a document that could be updated by various people as they run across those type of fun things. Do you have that, or did I just not see that in your list?
A glossary like that, no. I'm not like, okay, so A, cool idea. B, I'm like, what would go on there? Because I'm trying to think like, what are old terms and what are they called now? And I'm like, I don't remember what they used to be called because
real
now I
quick,
just know what they're called.
Google Workspace. What is the Google Workspace? Part of this is, part of this is just definitions of current working things, but there's a lot of things of transition. I go through the deconstruct it backwards. What are the current terminologies? If you've got the history behind it, what were the terminologies that were connected to this? It's sort of a backwards, it's how we reconstruct any art or science or anything else in the SCA. We start with the modern stuff or a cool picture, and then we go look for it and deconstruct it backwards. And part of this is my learning disability. I need to have enough information to make it go like this before I can see it. I have to have too much information.
Legitimate.
Yeah, Curtis, you can you can also add kind of a cross terminology page. So, if you're talking about spreadsheets, Microsoft's going to be Excel. Google's going to be Sheets. Open Libra might be, or Open Office will be X. Something along those lines. But you can talk about the larger concept where, Google Workspace is the same thing as Microsoft Cloud. Here is the SharePoint, blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that might help some people. So when you talk about, hey, I'm modifying in Word, well, in Google, it's going to be, Google Docs.
You're building a translation for culture.
Right.
Unfortunately, Google keeps changing the name on everything like every 15 minutes.
I do like that they changed it from Google Suite to Google Workspace, though, because I don't know, that one always caused problems. A suite of applications. What's it called? Google Suite. Thank you. But yeah, their terms are always so generically unhelpful sometimes. Okay, that is a thing to work on and think about. Thank you.